The reference that it was possibly of Malaysian or of the East Indian archipelago was later crossed out, as it says here in pencil. It was later attributed to the Congo in 1888 until finally it was identified as a Taino piece in 1952. I found it curious that all of these pieces were suddenly rediscovered in 1952. I want to research a little bit more as to what happened. How did they all become discovered in 1952? But the article goes on to explain that it became so popular among the royalty to have personal collections of items from the Americas. So it was very common for there to be artifacts in different royal houses. You know that even Ferdinand the First and Ferdinand the Second all had sizable collections. We even know that the Medicis had their own Americas collection that they would bring out in order to entertain their guests. And we know that their collection included Taino pieces. And because all three semis, the Turin, the Picorini, and the Vienna Belt semi, however you want to describe them, were all in Italy, the article suggests that maybe they were once all part of one collection, and that later on they were dispersed. The composition of the Vienna belt is of note. Like all of the other artifacts, is made of cotton, it's made of shells. The cronistas were so impressed by the way the shells were put together in this mainframe of cotton that they described it as a kind of needlework in shell done to a pleasing effect. We know that the belt contains about 11,000 beads. Just in the central semi section, there's about 1,200 beads, with the rest, about 9,500, on either straps. And even Bartolome de las Casas notes how the conchitas, or the little stones, were weaved into this framework in a way that they lasted perpetually. In other words, forever. And here we are 500 years later, still admiring that work. We also know that there was actually a bead manufacturing site on Grand Turks and Caicos Islands, where we know that the Tainos from La Española went to manufacture their beads. And if we take into account the process of the cotton, because you have to grow it, you have to pick it, you have to gin it, you have to card it, and then you have to spin the cotton in order to get to the form of a thread. So all of these steps is labor intensive. So the value of all of it, the cotton, the shells, the beads, everything, the time consumed made these objects priceless. And here we can see example of the actual cotton thread. We see that they did like a twisting method in order to the point where they could use it. The researcher also notes that the belt is heavy. It is not lightweight. So imagine a cacique wearing all of the regalia. He had to feel that he had it on. The base of the belt, 3 layers of cotton weave, and then the shells that were intersewn into this base. And I love this part. It says their integration testifies to the weaver's intuitive understanding of how to provide internal structure and support for a functional object, essentially a wearable work of art. And that's something that I have come to the conclusion while studying the Tainos, while reading constantly about their art, about their religion, about their way of life. They were artists, and artists are not interested in manual labor. We know that it's the intellect, the creativity. These were people who valued thought, valued being able to think, design, and create. And so that's where they clashed with the Spanish. The Spanish valued art, but it was something for royalty. It wasn't something that the common man was supposed to be doing. The common man was supposed to be working, slaving away basically, and not enjoying life. The Tainos had a system where everybody could enjoy life and could be basically an intellectual, a philosopher, an artist, a creator. So it was such a different type of society that was created compared to the Spanish. And there were certain points about this belt that call to attention because here, for example, this is the belt, and then this part here is actually the strap that would be tied. And the way it's done, you can't really see how it's connected, how the strap is connected to the belt. It's so seamless. This is a great example of the underbase, that cotton weave base that holds all the whole figure together. We see that it is very intricate underneath the way that they design this, for example, this space right here is missing a bead, but the rest of the structure is fine. I thought this was interesting too to see the three little hands. So all of the cotton artifacts that we have, they all have these hand depictions. We don't know if they had a meaning. We assume they do because we know that the Tainos wouldn't be adding these features just for the heck of it. But it is interesting to know that they're all very similar. They did do some carbon dating on this belt, and it came out very similar to the other two artifacts of cotton that we have. Same time range, about 1430s to I think the latest here is 60s, around there. So the researchers did comment on the different foreign elements in this belt. And this is where I was kind of like, okay. Because they speak about how these foreign elements could maybe push this item to being kind of like an item designed for European consumption, that it wasn't actually for a cacique. And they talk first about the glass. So, what many don't know about glass at this time is that the glass that the Europeans had in this medieval point in time, it was a thin piece of glass coated with lead, and it was very common. It wasn't like something special. So, it wasn't the kind of like shiny, very shiny, reflective mirror that we use nowadays, and that began to be produced around 1507. So that story that the indigenous people were wowed about, oh my god, these mirrors. No. In La Española or in Bohío or in Quisqueya, they had so many rivers. They also had the guanin or the gold that they would hammer down. They saw their reflection all the time. That's what I'm trying to say. It wasn't like something like, oh my gosh, like look at who's that? No. So as it says here, the larger and brighter those of the medieval period were the prerogative of the wealthy in Europe. So these mirrors, the mirrors that most people think were given to the indigenous population, did not exist at the time when Columbus arrived. This was much later that those mirrors came to be. The ones inside the semi's eye, we assume they're the lead ones. They're not very bright, not very clear. However, without the analysis of the chemical composition of these mirrors, we're not going to know which type of mirror it was.